Good evening, welcome back to the only Subaru live questions and answers session on YouTube. If you haven't seen this before, just fire your questions at me, whatever they are, Subaru related. I will try my very best to answer as truthfully and honestly as I can. Whether that be about modifications, about tuning, ECU related issues, fault finding, anything Subaru related, track setup, or just want to ask a question related to Subarus. You're thinking about buying one, what are the common issues, those kind of things. Normally these sessions get quite manic. They're getting busier and busier. So if you're new here, where have you been? This is episode 41, I think it is so far. I'll answer whatever questions are thrown at me. I can see I've got a few already that have thrown some questions in the hat. So if you're asking a question, please put a Q at the beginning of it, because it helps me identify which ones are questions and which ones are just comments or replies to other people answering a question. Obviously the space in the live chat box isn't huge, so try and keep it as concise as possible, and if it's a more detailed question, put it over a couple of comments. I can see there's quite a few already in here. Hello. Right, okay, I won't do a name call, but yeah, welcome back everyone. If you're watching this on replay, put your question in the comments and I will reply. I'll reply to every single question. Right, so where do we start? Okay, right, there we go. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name. No, I'm not. Okay, at what power level does a 2 3/4 exhaust system become a restriction? Yeah, good question. Generally, the step up from a 2.5 to a 3-inch exhaust, and generally 3 inches probably as big as most people go. It starts costing you power about 350 horsepower on a 2.75 exhaust, probably a little bit more than that, probably 370, 380. And at that point, it just starts robbing a little bit of the power potential. So probably be fine up to high 300s. Right. Okay, Fez. Hi, mate. What do I think to the white line handling stuff? Very good. The anti-roll bars, I think, are really good. The drop links, the adjustable drop links, not quite so keen on those. They have a habit of, or I put them on the Forester last year, and within 6 months they'd seized up. So I took them off, put standard ones on there. The roll center adjust kit for the track rod ends and the ball joints, I think, is very good. The anti-lift kit, which is actually a pro lift kit, but you read their website for the details of that, is a very good product. It gives you a lot more caster. They should call it a caster kit really, but generally very good quality. Right. Oh, people are trying me with pronunciations of names. Premek Nowak. Right. Blow-off valve spring on a forged blow-off valve is red, 30 psi, too big on a 1.7 bar map. Effectively, what you're doing there is making it so that it sort of like blanking off the dump valve. So when you're on boost, it's going to make no difference. But when you let off boost, what you're going to find is when you have more vacuum in the manifold than the boost and the spring pressure, then it's going to dump at that point. But generally it's not going to hit there, so it's going to be working the same as blanking off the dump valve. So it will just send the air back through the turbo, out the air filter, and you get the nice sound effects. Swapping it for a different spring isn't going to need mapping. It's not really going to make any difference while it's on boost. It's only sort of the dumping of the air that's going to be an issue, and there's nothing you can do on a map to actually account for that. So if you like the sound effects of what's happening with the red spring, then keep it there. If you don't, then put a slightly softer spring in. Alright, okay, Midland coach hire. Hi Duncan, Hawkeye running 360 horsepower, 402 pounds-foot, VF34 1.3 bar, rebuilt last year. Is the PCV okay at this power? Yeah, I doubt whether it's the PCV that would be an issue. It would probably more likely to be rocket cover gaskets or cam cover gaskets. If they're sort of oozing slightly, then it will drip down onto the headers and you get that smell outside of the car. And the PCV, generally they're a pain in the backside unless you're keen to have the sort of recirculation of the gases. So they quite often block up, and you know it's a good mod to actually remove them, blank them up, and yeah, for the catch can. What power did the RCM 500 make at 1.7 bar? That depends on the engine. Oh, that was a question to him. Right, okay. Right, do you know of any polybush kits for a UK 2000 that don't cost the earth? Yeah, it cost. Modifications are expensive. You know, uprated stuff is generally worth it, but there are downsides to polybushing. It makes, you know, any imperfections in the road surface much more noticeable, sort of top mounts rattling and, you know, vibration, harshness in the car. Yeah, Super Pro, probably the best one that I would think of that's a reasonable price. Best exhaust manifold for the oh so sweet Subaru Rumble. I still love the standard Subaru exhaust manifold with a little bit of porting that can flow 600 horsepower, and they are very robust. The aftermarket ones, whoever makes the aftermarket ones, and most of them end up being made in the same factory, they tend to crack around the collector, and particularly so if you exhaust wrap them. The ceramic coated ones are slightly better from that side of things, but you're talking, like in the UK, I think they're about £1,300, so not cheap. Standard exhaust manifolds, perfect, good size, you know, with a bit of porting, they'll flow good horsepower. Yeah, I like easy questions, Fred. Right. Alright, my 2008 STI check engine light PO128. Coolant temperature below, thermostat regulating temperature. I've never seen that code. So it could be that it is the wrong temperature sensor. I'm presuming that the radiator is up to temperature by feel. If the temperature sensor has been changed, it could be something that's worth looking at. But I've never seen that code in all my years of having problems on Subarus. Right. Right, okay, I think I understand this. So running mathless, taking out the MAF sensor in the pipework. I have to say I haven't run a back-to-back on like a tube with a MAF sensor in there and a tube without a MAF sensor in there. I would doubt that it makes any measurable difference whatsoever. There are better tuning options with using the map sensor for fueling and ignition, particularly on like a 99 2000, because the MAF sensors are really unreliable on those. The new age MAF sensors are very reliable, and you know, it doesn't stop you getting a great map done on the car with the MAF sensor there. The only reason to go MAFless really is beyond 420-ish horsepower, or to go to an aftermarket ECU. Bum, 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 bum. Ooh, there's some really good questions. In my experience, any difference between AFR at the start of the downpipe versus at the tailpipe with a ProDrive cat? Not that I've really noticed. I think if anything, there'd be probably 0.1, 0.2 AFR of a difference. I've tuned cars that have had widebands in the top of the downpipe pre-cat, and obviously I tune with a wideband in the exhaust because that's the setup for the dyno. But every wideband sensor varies. So 11.5 on the dyno wideband might show 11.1 on the wideband in the car, or it might show 11.8. So they're all slightly different, which is why when I'm tuning, I'll always pick a safer sort of 11.3 AFR generally, just to give that sort of variance. Hi Zed, hello mate. Hope all is well. Thumping noise in fuel tank after a drive when engine is turned off. A thumping noise. Yeah, or it could be a blockage, the vacuum side of things, like the breather, the tank breather, that might be causing something. If the engine's actually off and it's making that noise, could be that, but I haven't heard that noise before. Oh God, so many questions. Right, okay, O2WRX have a coolant leak I'm trying to find. Every time I use an engine block coolant heater, my car smokes up quite a bit on the initial drive and smells like coolant. If you don't preheat, you don't get any smell. Yeah, I'm going to have to come back to you on that. That's baffled me. So you're using a block heater. Yeah, I have to say I don't know. If you're smelling it, if it's coming out the exhaust, then something's going on inside the cylinder heads. Possibly a crack on the cylinder head around the spark plug hole that's travelled through to the coolant galleries. If it's outside of the car at the front, then it's got to be a leak somewhere. And generally you would find a telltale of where that leak is coming from. Right, we spoke last week at the dyno about next possible steps for lots of power upgrades, said about a better top mount, any particular brands you suggest, and would it need mapping. If you're fitting a different top mount but keeping the same induction kit on there, it doesn't need mapping, but you would benefit from mapping because if presumably you're putting a better top mount on there, therefore it's going to have extra cooling, the air's going to go in cooler, it's going to enable the engine to take more ignition time and therefore create more power. So it doesn't need mapping, but you want to map it, otherwise there's no point putting the better top mount on there. Brands wise, Process West, Mishimoto, I think, do a nicer top mount. Hyperflow, there's still quite a few of those around second hand, or even some of the bigger eBay ones. They're better than the standard WX one. Lots of options. Perrin, I think in the States ETS do a nice one as well. There's lots of options on that, but generally bigger is better for those if you don't want to go down the front mount route. Right, hi Duncan, any notable power gains by upgrading stock headers to aftermarket ones for a 2-litre twin scroll turbo legacy? No, full stop. Yeah, just no. The standard twin scroll headers are really good, and until you're getting above 400 horsepower, you're not going to notice any difference by giving someone a big chunk of money. You've managed to download the ROM off your car. How to tell by looking at the maps that it's running mathless? I think it's ROM Radar I'm viewing it on. If you look at the ROM ID, it should, if that equates to the same as the ROM ID for the standard standard type map on there, then that will be running with a MAF. If it's something that is more bespoke and might be a MERP mod or Dime mod, then it will have a different ROM ID in there. Another question there. Right. Right. Best gauges to have in the car. Oil pressure is always a useful one. Particularly if you're using the car on track, because it gives you an early warning sign of issues. You're looking for changes in what it normally is, oil pressure, versus what it is at the moment. Also give you early warning for oil surge going around a corner if you've not got a baffled sump in there, or even if you have got a baffled sump but you're a particularly quick driver. It'll give you warnings for that. I always like those on the driver pillar, because certainly in the UK most tracks are clockwise, and that's more in your line of vision than in the center console. So oil pressure, oil temperature, again useful. Boost is kind of useful because it's easy and nice to see whether there's any issues or overboost or underboosting, those sort of things. So probably those three would be the main ones. If you're more in the tuning side of things, then a wideband gauge would be very useful. Bum, 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 bum. Right, am I planning any back-to-back tests this year or next? I'm kind of running out of time this year for back-to-back tests. I think I've only got a couple of free days on the dyno now, pre-Christmas. I may be up at the dyno between Christmas and New Year, and it won't be busy, so I will probably be filming something at that point. I'll dream up something to test. Fuel additives is something that springs to mind, sort of octane boosters and comparing that to methanol and ethanol and those sort of things. So I might do that, but in the run up to Christmas, it always gets absolutely crazy in the run up to Christmas. I don't know why, but this year's no different, unfortunately, or fortunately. Yeah, I think I'll check the breather system, the tank breather. It might be you've blocked it off inadvertently, which would build up pressure in there, and it would cause lots of issues. Okay, hi Isaac. What downpipe? Catless downpipe is better performance for a Forester SF5, 3-inch or 2.5 inch. You have a catback Kumame 3-inch. If you're going like a decat downpipe, then you might as well future-proof it and put a 3-inch downpipe on there, because you don't know where you're eventually going to sort of end up. And it also means if you did want to change your mind and put it back to standard, the 3-inch downpipe is much easier to sell. Right. Have I any experience with the Sunoco GT260 fuel? No, I haven't. How high can you take the compression ratio if using E85? With that in mind, does a higher compression ratio with E85 increase torque? It will increase torque. I probably wouldn't go above 9.5 on the compression ratio. 9 is probably enough, to be honest. 9.5, it just makes it really I know E85 it's really resistant to detonation, but it makes it more liable to issues with the fuel quality. I don't know what E85 you're using. Sometimes if they're like a homebrew E85, then there can be issues. So I probably wouldn't go any more than 9 on the compression ratio. Okay, so JDM Link G4X methanol percentage 1 mapping is 40% okay. You're probably best off getting a flex fuel sensor in there, because you can set the link up to sort of measure and adapt the maps, sort of interpolate between a fuel map for V-Power and a fuel map for 40% methanol, and the same with the ignition maps, and also boost as well. You can get it to do different boost levels depending on what fuel's in the tank. But a flex fuel sensor, when I map those, so I generally with V-Power and Tesco Momentum in the UK, they're around the 5% ethanol side. So so I'd set the 0 point for one map at 5%, and I'd set the 100% meth map one based on a 40% mix, so that if you're putting anywhere in between those two values, it will blend between the V-Power map and the methanol map. So it works really nicely. The flex fuel setup is really good. The sensors are reliable and pretty cheap, really, for what they can do, and sort of the lack of hassle when it comes to filling up methanol, because you can be running along on V-Power and you just got 5 litres of methanol you want to use, put that in, it's fine. It will adjust automatically. So flex fuel is the way you want to be going. Hello from Georgia. Hello, Georgia. Right. Cheers for all the, no problem at all. I forgot to say, this session normally lasts for an hour. If I run out of questions before an hour, then I'll stop it at that point. But after an hour, my voice generally goes. I'm not used to talking to people. I generally play with a laptop in the best job in the world, tuning cars, or tuning Subarus in particular. Curious as to the best method to smoothing out low RPM cruising with drive-by-wire on a 2005 US. Is this on the standard ECU or something like a link, where the drive-by-wire throttle maps are pretty linear? I also found with the throttle maps, it's best to sort of have really low level, like an S curve, so that it's resistant to little bumps in the road that would normally be opening the throttle, shutting the throttle. Can make it really jerky on a link with the standard sort of drive-by-wire setup that they ship out with those ECUs. So if you look at the torque, requested torque, and sort of smooth out the bottom end of that so that they're so there isn't much change between reasonable low throttle changes, then it makes it a bit smoother. What's my take with regards to the brake boost delete on a track car? Yeah, I did that on mine. Probably the worst thing I did, or one of the worst things I did, unless you've seen the I ruined it video. The servo brakes work really well. It gives you more choice of pad material. It gives you in a lot of ways better braking, because putting pedal boxes in there is an absolute pain. Some of the cheap pedal boxes, like the EP41s in particular, are appalling. Things like the Tilton pedal boxes are brilliant. Don't require a huge amount of setting up, but you still need to size the cylinders appropriately, and getting that right takes a lot of faffing around. Whereas running the servo, it's easy. You just, if it's just a non-serious track day car, then just go out and drive it and enjoy, rather than turn it into a pretend race car. Just speaking from experience on that. Right, another question, Fred. You're treating me today. Best way to eliminate lean spikes during overrun when I let off the accelerator or during gear changes. Why are you wanting to eliminate lean spikes? That's probably what I would say to that. I'd answer your question with a question. I know you wanted to get the fueling nice and smooth from the wideband point of view, but when you're lifting off the throttle, if you've got overrun fueling switched on or off or whatever it is, so that it's actually switching off the injectors when you're coming off the throttle, then you'll always get lean spikes. And it's not a bad thing, because, you know, between gear changes, that lean spike will actually help it spool up better for the next gear. So I just question why you're wanting to do that, really. Dad, is this a new noise? It wasn't doing that last week or whatever it was, the week before that you came up. What's changed since then? Hi Cole, doing your car soon? RJ's building it. You're in good hands there. Is the banjo bolt filter on a twin scroll turbo necessary to remove? The filters are in the AVCS pipework, and yes, they should be removed. Also, for bigger turbos, can we modify the size of the banjo bolt hole for better oil flow? It depends on what type of turbo it is. If it's a sleeve bearing turbo, it needs a bigger hole. If it's a roller bearing turbo, it needs a small hole. If you put a bigger hole banjo or make the hole bigger, it will just blow the seals on the turbo and kill it. So it needs to be sized to the particular type of turbo. Is sending you my ROM to check possible? Yeah, but pop it over on email to duncan@racedynamics.com. I will have a look at it and let you know what I think. Right. Regarding methanol mix, I have flex fuel sensor, but heard not to go below 30%. I don't understand why someone would say don't go below 30%. The whole idea of the flex fuel is you can run anywhere between no extra methanol and 40% or 50% or 100% if you wanted to map it for 100% methanol. Please don't, it's horrible. But if it's set up right, it should blend automatically between V-Power map or normal fuel map and whatever the maximum percentage is. I normally set that maximum at 40% just because it gives a bit of leeway for people to run anywhere. Most people will run sort of 20, 25, maybe even 30%. But for special occasions, they can put 40% in and, get all of the extra power that's available. I don't know why you've been told don't go below 30 unless it's not been set up right. Thank you very much indeed, Sam. Thank you. I will have a pint or two or a bottle. Right. GTX turbo, process wets, top mount, 750 injectors, Hayward and Scott exhaust, everything else stock. Yeah, I don't see why not. Can you get 450? I did one for RJ, a very similar spec this week, that made more than 450 on that. So, yeah, I don't see any reason why that sort of figure is not achievable. Can the exhaust diameter be too big? I've not seen that, but then most people aren't going above 3" on the exhaust. I think from memory I tuned a 4" exhaust a long while ago, but on a Subaru it's really difficult to get a 4" decap downpipe next to the steering column on a UK car, because it's all over the same side and it's really tight for space. For left-hand drive cars for US and Europe and whatever, I'm sure there are a few people running 4" exhausts on there because they've got the space. Okay, hi Paul. Got a lean fuel code on 2012 STI, run it on local dyno, find it's rich low down until 3000, then it runs lean. Right, what's happening there is the ECU is seeing that it's rich all the way when it's cruising and idle, and it's taking out extra fuel, or it's taking out as much as it can. There are limits to what it can do, but it's thinking, I know, I'll do the owner a favour, because I'm taking out fuel at the bottom, it must mean that it's rich everywhere, so I'll take out fuel everywhere. So even when you're on boost, yeah, thank you ECU. So at that point, it's then going super rich, super lean, I mean. The map needs changing. You might have had an induction kit fitted that hasn't been mapped for, or you've got a leak of some shape or form that's making the ECU run rich at idle and cruise. Whatever way, I'd get it checked out, because you do not want it running lean on boost. Right. If the car was tuned in the winter with that can, should have checked again in hot weather. Yeah, yes, I would. If it's a customer that's brought a car to me and I've mapped it in the summer, and they want it checked in the winter, it should be fine. And vice versa, winter versus the summer, it should be absolutely fine, because I build enough safety margin in to account for these sort of things. Plus I've been doing it a little while now. If you're tuning it yourself, Moshiko, then I think it's worth kind of getting used to what the car's doing through the seasons, just to figure out the impact of various things. So the impact of the intake temperature on ignition timing, the intake temperature on boost control, and how it will boost up better in colder weather than it does in the summer. Be worth it from your point of view, from a learning point of view, to actually see what it's doing and to hear what it's doing. So yeah, it doesn't cost you anything to check your own car. It depends on the other mods. If you got headers, once you JDM, Impreza, standard headers, port them out a little bit, and that would make some decent power. Front mounted intercooler, full decat exhaust, you'd be over the 500 with an RCM 600 with 20% MEF, with the right ECU and the right person setting it up, obviously. Yeah, it would be quick. It would be quick. Right. GC, what was that one? Right, okay. Yeah, if it's the stock ECU and you're wanting to smooth out the tables, there are effectively two lots of like torque control tables that relate to like what the accelerator pedal is doing versus what the throttle position is doing. If you smooth out the bottom end of that, just to make it so that you know, say between 5 and 15%, maybe 20%, and just sort of bring those down and make the change between the 5 and 10 and the 10 and 15 quite small gaps. It will smooth it out for cruise, but then ramp it up, i.e. when you put your foot down and you mean to go faster, then you can get it into like full send mode quite easily. Said it could also be a pipe that connects the fuel pump to the hanger. There was a lot of fuel pumps where the little bit of rubber pipe sort of delaminates and separates that do the fuel issues that you're seeing. Three and a quarter with a ding in it, with a bit of persuasion with a hammer. Yeah, that's not too big. Yeah, the steering column gets in the way for our cars. It's a pain, but what can we do? Ooh, do I have a favourite induction? Or are they very much the same? Wire, cotton versus foam? I'm not a fan of the foam ones. They, if you're running a standard MAF sensor, the foam ones are very heavily coated in oil, and it tends to ruin the MAF sensor. The K&N filters, I think, are probably by far and away the best. So yeah, that's my personal opinion. Full cash. Sorry, I had more. Smoke tested, no leaks, standard engine, but it only runs lean between 2.7 and 4.2. Is there a way of checking MAF and Lambda? Yeah, the easy way to check on the MAF is to borrow another good one, another working MAF sensor, just swap them out. It's only 2 screws, and see whether that makes a difference. You can check the voltages, but it depends whether it's been mapped, what the map setup is for it, whether it's you've got an induction kit on there, whether the map has been adjusted for the induction kit, because any fuel corrections at the bottom end tend to get learnt going forward. It might be that it's only showing that it's lean between 2,700 and 4,200 because the map was running richer beyond that point anyway, and it's just brought it leaner than it was. That could also be dangerous depending on how it was mapped or set up. So I think it needs investigating rather than just swapping sensors. Right, Pat. Mapping my EJ205, would you recommend using a piggyback ECU? Is that in your blob-eye? I'd never use a piggyback ECU on a 2001 onwards Subaru. Yeah, just don't do it. The standard ECU is really good, can do an awful lot of things, whereas a piggyback generally, like something like a what are they called, Unilink, or is it Unilink? Anyway, yeah, piggybacks, just avoid them, because all they're doing is fooling sensors, and the standard ECU is doing what it thinks is the right thing, but something else is overriding the sensor signals going into the ECU. Having said that, ProDrive did that with the early PVP kits, but Unichip, that's the word. Yeah, thanks, Neil. Yeah, the standard ECU is brilliant. right? Really, really good, really flexible, but it has its limits, but it's always going to be better than a piggyback ECU. Yeah, Unichip. I don't know why people fit these. I probably once a year I get a car that comes in that's had one of these fitted. They've been charged £800 for this Unichip to go on there, and it's absolutely appalling. It just doesn't do anything well. All it is something that just is separately wired in and is just not very good. When am I coming to Ireland to map your car? Send me the tickets. Yeah, we can have a chat about that. I wouldn't come over to just map one car, to be perfectly honest, but I'm sure something can be sorted. Right, front mount or top mount is the question. 2006 Hawkeye. I want to keep it as original as I can, but want as much power as I can. Front mount is always going to give you more power. I did the video front mount versus top mount on Ben's car, on Ben's Hawkeye, and the front mount sort of was miles better and miles safer as well, because the faster you go with the front mount, the better it works. The faster you go with the top mount, the worse they work. Yeah, it's better from a safety point of view, better from a power point of view. Some would argue that it looks cooler. It just works better because it's directly in the airflow. So front mount would always be my choice. Unless you've got a particularly rare car where you do not want to cut the bumpers. You know, on my Forester STI, I didn't want to cut the front bumper on the Nardo Grey one. So I fitted a large top mount and said, right, okay, all I want is 450, and that intercooler coped with that really nicely. If you want to go more than that, you're into front mount territory as well. If you're going to use the car on track at all, front mount. If it's just for the road and you just want a piece of paper that says 450 horsepower, but it's rarely going to get opened up, then top mount is fine. Right, okay, so I understand why you don't want to cut it. Right, don't cut it. Top mount is fine. You know, my Forester STI at 450 horsepower, not a lot of things on the road will keep with that. Don't chase power figures, because it just ends up costing you a lot of money and a lot of pain, and it's not worth it. But if you're absolutely after the power, then front mount is the way. Yeah, I'll have a quick peek this evening. Right, supporting mods. Right, so if you got the turbo, you got the injectors. Presumably your clutch is either in very good condition or you're expecting to do a clutch at some point. You will need to do a clutch at some point, because a 2.5 with 450 horsepower is going to be close to 500 pounds-foot of torque. That's more than what most standard clutches will cope with. It needs a full free-flowing exhaust, so whether that be a D-cat for the best power, sports cat will reduce the power potential down, probably 20 horsepower. Top mount is going to reduce the power potential of the turbo down, probably 20-30 horsepower. Exhaust headers, GT spec for that sort of power, you might want to go down that route, or standard headers that are ported. would be a better option in my opinion, because that frees up budget for other stuff. And obviously, yeah, mapping and fuel pump. I'm happy to travel. You know, getting up to Scotland and road mapping in the middle of the winter is probably not a brilliant idea. Not with a huge amount of snow that some of you have had in the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I don't mind travelling. It's just you know, driving from Bournemouth to Scotland is a bit of a drive. I think last time I drove up, it was 15 hours to go up to the Isle of Skye. Very beautiful though, very beautiful. Would a GC8 model STI 5-speed gearbox fit and be stronger than my WRX 5-speed? Not really, no. For a start, it's probably at least 5, maybe 10 years older. Yeah, I don't think you're going to gain anything from doing that, unfortunately. You can put a 6-speed in there, and then you've got an extra gear, and you can, you know, a JDM 6-speed, and you got 5 gears that are probably equivalent to like the gear spacing for a proper gearbox. Yeah, merchandise is available. There are lots of designs, but thank you very much. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, FB25D. No, I don't get involved in those. Yeah, I've got no information that I can provide you on that, I'm afraid. Right, how are we doing time wise? Okay, any more questions, guys, because we're coming towards the end. Genuine nitride crank, not black. Number on crank is once. Yeah, I have got absolutely no idea what the number on the crank should be. Yeah, if it's not black, then yeah, I think it's probably. Where did you buy it from? If it's from a reputable seller, then they should be able to tell you what the information is on that particular crank and why it appears to be different to all the normal nitrided cranks. Right, have I missed any questions? Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, what is Carberry? Alright, Carberry is an adaptation of the standard ROM, which is the programming within the ECU that tells everything to work as it does. Was developed by a guy in the open source forums who goes by the name of Carbibbles. So he developed this ROM which runs on speed density. So rather than using the MAF sensor, it uses the manifold pressure sensor and makes all the maps like the fueling and the ignition timing sort of based on manifold pressure rather than sort of equating to a MAF sensor based load. Opens up some options for anti-lag and launch control, twin maps and some various other extra features. There are some downsides to it because, you know, you're fitting a lot more features into what is essentially a very small file size. So in some cases, some of the nice cold start, idling, cruisy things that kind of happen behind the scenes on the standard ECU, some of those can be sacrificed or sort of pared down a little bit, so it can feel a little bit rough and ready sometimes, not always, but it has other benefits. That's what it is. Yeah, developed by guy over in the States, I think he is. Right. Bum, bum. I'm loving the Q&As. I have to calm myself down after these. The Sunday morning video, I hope everyone liked the Time Attack Impreza. That car is absolutely wild. Hoping to go out with him on track in that sort of early part of next year, and there'll be, you know, with the bodywork on there, it's phenomenal. But we couldn't get it in the dyno cell with the bodywork on it. So track testing, we're gonna do wind tunnel testing of that as well, which will obviously make a great video. Yeah, Sunday morning videos or Saturday morning if I can do the filming, but generally Saturday afternoon is when I do the editing. Steering knuckle catches bad on the downpipe. Does the STI UJ knuckle fix the catching problem? Generally a big hammer fixes that, and you know, undoing the centre mount and just levering the exhaust over can create enough space. If not, undo the engine mounts and just slide the engine towards the driver's side as much as it will go, and that kind of lifts the turbo and the downpipe away. That can give enough extra room. When am I live next? Generally I'll do these on a Wednesday. I'm trying to be pretty firm on that. I'm not 100% sure whether next Wednesday will happen though. Yeah, like I said, big hammer, or a ball pin hammer if you want to be precise. Space in the Forester SCI ECU for cruise control? No, not to my knowledge. I did search this the last time someone asked. It might have been you that asked last time, Neil. I did search all the way through and couldn't find anything in there that could control it. And yeah, it might be possible with a lot of faffing around, but it's not even an option to put a different ECU in there that would do it. I think it would be a very tricky thing to do. Right, okay, I'm going to call it. That's 9 o'clock. So thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you in the next video or the next live stream. Cheers. Thanks.